When I first came to Germany to get my master's degree, there were definitely a few culture shocks in the beginning. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a few tips that I learned along the way so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did, especially when it comes to saving time for you and doing things more efficiently. The biggest shock that I found here in Germany when studying was that they treat you almost as a number among many in the crowd. And so education here is much less personal and much more efficient and pragmatic. And so they do that because they can teach a lot more students for much cheaper, and that's what allows them to offer education for very little cost. And so it has its reasons, but if you're coming from a private university or a country like the US, or have classrooms that have 20 or 30 students, you're definitely gonna face some culture shocks here. And so the same way that they approach you in this pragmatic and efficient way, one tip that I can give you is to also approach your masters also in a very efficient and pragmatic way. One example that I can give you is just how you're graded here in Germany. In countries like the US, for example, we have midterms, have projects, even homework, that's all gonna count towards your final grade. But here in Germany, there's literally one thing, which is your final exam, for most of your classes at least. So if you pass the final exam, you're good. If you fail it, then you gotta retake the class the next semester. So it's a very efficient and pragmatic approach to your grade, right? And so the same way that they treat you like this, I would advise you that you also can approach your studies in a similar way. What I mean by that is if you know that your goal is to pass the final exam, then you can focus all of your time to actually studying for the exam directly, right? So in the beginning, I made the mistake where I would learn all the theory, read all the textbooks that were just wasted time. They wouldn't be in the final exam. But if you just get old exams and really focus on those same questions, you're gonna see that a lot of the time they're gonna be posting the same questions on the exams. They just repeated, changing a few numbers. And so you can really focus, have this directed approach, and you're gonna see you can accomplish things much more efficiently and faster. And keep in mind that this video is about finishing your master's the fastest way possible, not necessarily about learning the most or researching a topic that you're really passionate about. And so keep that in mind when you take these tips, that you have to really focus on the exam, just try to memorize almost how the questions are going to look like. These are just tips so that you can get your master's degree as fast as you can if that's your goal. All right, one other tip that I learned here in Germany that made everything more efficient for me for my studies was that I was wasting a lot of time just writing down stuff while the professor was teaching something in the lectures. I don't know if you can relate to this, but sometimes I'll be paying attention to the lecture and I would want to write something down on my notebook back then. And then I would waste time writing stuff down, and by the time I would pay attention again to the professor, he'd already be talking about something else. And so I found a better approach, and that only works here in Germany, mostly because of the bigger lecture halls. You can just actively listen to the professor, just try to understand what he's saying. And when he's done writing on the board, you can just take a picture with your phone and nobody's gonna notice. Like, it's such a big hall, and I think that was more difficult in the US when you have a small classroom with 20 students, but here was definitely doable. A lot of people were doing it, and so you can really just actively listen, and then you're gonna be learning much more because you won't be wasting time, writing down stuff that you can just take a picture anyways later. When it came to studying for the exam, as I mentioned, I would mostly focus on old and previous exams from previous semesters, but I would quickly, just go over the pictures that I've taken from the classes, just try to summarize everything very quickly and start doing those problems as fast as I could. But if you have those pictures in your phone, it's very easy to just go try to summarize everything, and that just helped me having a overall view of what the subject was about, and then go directly to the problems and the solutions afterwards. Okay, the final tip that I have here is to fail early. I know that a lot of people give you this tip, and actually it's very helpful for me. It stuck with me and it really works. So especially when it comes to your master thesis, that's a big part of your master's here in Germany is your master thesis. And a lot of people, they waste time, doing unnecessary things. Like, for example, they over focus on the literature research. That's important, I'm not saying it's not, but I would advise you, as you do the literature research, to actually just start at the same time working on your master thesis. So like, try to fail early, try to do something that doesn't work, and then you can write it down about it already, and that already counts towards your progress. So a lot of people would spend like months just trying to research papers, read stuff that they would just forget later, right? So you can do everything at the same time. You can just start building whatever your idea is, whichever your thesis is, and do literature research on the side. Whenever you have something that's working, you just write it down. Many students also just waste a lot of time just picking their master thesis. And here in Germany, it's not the easiest thing to get a master topic from a institute. Here in Germany, there's a bunch of institutes, and usually they're gonna offer you topics that you can pick from. And again, this is about getting your degree as fast as you can. If you're passionate about a subject that you want to research, then take your time to find the institute that provides you the best topic. But if you just want to be done with it as fast as you can just be very efficient about it. Pick the first topic that you think that's interesting, that applies to you, and just start working on it. Don't waste too much time and don't be too picky about getting your master topic for your master thesis. When it comes to actually writing your master thesis, making the document that you're going to submit, I would also advise you, to start writing stuff as you accomplish things, as you find out new stuff. That when you build stuff, for example, just write down whatever you found out along your semester, or however long it takes for you to write your thesis. And don't focus too much on formatting at first. You can of course just get a template from your institute and just use LaTeX to actually start building something that you can turn in the end. But don't focus too much about font or how things look like, at least in the beginning, while you're researching and while you're building stuff. I would actually just focus on the content for the first few semesters, and actually just focus on the formatting and editing, making it pretty on the last few months before you have to submit your master thesis. A lot of people, they spend a lot of time just like trying to format, try to make it look nice from the get-go, and I think that just wastes a lot of time. You can just use the last months to do that. All right, one bonus tip here is that I found that a lot of people are very visual, and that also applies to your master's degree, and you can actually take advantage of that. And what I mean by that is that you can use a lot of pictures, you can show a lot of stuff visually, and people are gonna take your master thesis in a different way almost. Like the professor gonna really appreciate if you can show something that they can actually understand just by looking at it. For example, in my case, I invested in a 3D printer when I was first starting my master thesis, and I could just print stuff, my ideas, build stuff that people can actually look and understand right away what I was trying to do. And they just have a different eye for it. I don't know what happens, but they really appreciate that, and that might help you when they're grading your thesis, for example. I mean, it happens to me when I'm bored in a class, in a lecture, where there's a bunch of text, the professor's just like talking about stuff. But as soon as he puts a nice diagram or a nice picture, I look at it and I suddenly get more attention. I pay more attention to whatever he's showing, just because he showed something that's visual and that I can understand by looking at it right away. But those are just a few tips that I could give to you to make your life more efficient and use your time more efficiently here when you're doing your master's degree, so you don't have to waste as much time as I did when I was doing mine. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.